Greg and his team are kind of spearheading all of that. So
okay.
they've got a whole
Hey
plan
guys,
and everything.
just real quick, I noticed on Saturday there were some people who didn't have Slack, like the actual app, on your desktop. You definitely need to have that up because everything happens through Slack. So if you still have it in the browser, make sure you download the desktop app and keep that open throughout class because that's our primary source of communication. So.
All right, you are up, sir. All right, good evening, everyone. Let's go ahead and get started. Close your laptops for now. We'll come back to it. Initial few minutes. This is JJ. He'll introduce himself and go through it, and then we'll start the class.
Cool. Yeah, I just wanted to come by and introduce myself. My name's JJ Brenner. I'm the lead instructor here with University of Arizona. So it's my job to kind of oversee all the instructional staff and make sure that the classroom experience is what we want it to be, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm not like technically Daniel's boss or anything like that, but if like we had to fire him or something, someone else would do it. It wouldn't be. But I am responsible for everything that kind of happens here in the classrooms, and we want to make sure that again that this is the best possible experience for you all. So I wanted to let you guys know first off that you have another resource if for whatever reason you need to reach out to me. I'm just down the hall. Feel free, grab me during office hours, see me walking around. You can always get me on email as well. I'm just jjbrenner@class.com. So feel free to hit me up. All these people know how to get a hold of me if you can't for whatever reason. So anyways, that's that. I'm here to help and support if there's ever an issue that you don't feel like you can bring to Daniel or the TAs. Feel free to reach out to me. You can always reach out to Frank as well. But absolutely don't hesitate. What I wanted to do tonight was just to make sure we've had a few mentions that the Wi-Fi has not been working. Is there anyone here that doesn't have a permanent login for the Wi-Fi yet? We're still creating. I know we're still in like brand new. What week 2?
Yeah, we're starting.
So did anyone not get an email from Patty and the U of A team with a assignment? Anybody? Sam, you're still creating them? See me later, Sam. I'll take care. Okay, cool. We've had a few issues with it. I was thinking that it got all resolved, but then a few of my students told me that it wasn't, and they asked me to follow up with me. So I wanted to make sure that that's all set. Is there anything else that's pressing on your minds that I need to be aware of? Well, Daniel's awesome. Definitely ask questions. Don't ever hesitate. Right? Those TAs back there are awesome too. I know all of them. They're good people. Anyway, cool. That's it. Anything I know? Cool. Thank you.
Thank you, JJ. All right, let's go ahead. Week 2. Everybody is still here? Nobody jumped out of the class yet? I have to check attendance and make sure. Still feels the same amount of people, so we'll go ahead. All right, so how was Saturday? Not more overwhelming? Yeah. You know, that Saturday, for some reason, I also hate that Saturday. It's confusing. I try my best. I mean, unfortunately, I wasn't here. But those are difficult topics. We'll get there. Okay. So what are we going to be doing today? We'll just today is, I won't say it's easy, but it's a little bit easier. If you have time towards the end, I want to give some time back to you guys so you guys can work on homework also. We'll see how we are doing in the class. We'll just do a basic quick recap of what we saw, what we learned in week 1. There are some other CSS concepts we are going to look at. It's not extremely difficult or more confusing, but I want to make sure that everybody understands those new CSS ones. We're going to look at Chrome DevTools. I think you guys saw them on Saturday, and I'll just walk you guys through again because during your coding development, you are going to be using the DevTools a lot, right? We need to make sure we are using them so that we can debug and make sure before we ask for help, we have tried everything, and then we are going and asking for help. So Chrome DevTools is a really good tool, and I'll walk you guys through it one more time. All right. The last one is really important. You guys are aware about GitHub. I'm going to show you how to deploy your websites, your homeworks, and everything so that everybody can view them, right? That's how you will be doing going forward. Right now, when you run your website, it runs locally on your laptop. Nobody else can see it, but I'm going to show you using GitHub Pages. It's a free hosting site tool that GitHub has, and you guys will deploy it, and you can send that link to anybody, and they'll be able to access your websites, your projects, and everything. Okay, that's a really cool thing, and it comes free with GitHub. Okay. All right. Some of the things that I've seen in the first week. Um, you guys, there's a lot of information. I know it's confusing, but that's what the bootcamp is. It's not going to slow down. It's actually going to get even more difficult. I'm telling you, in like few months, maybe like 2 or 3 months down the road, you are going to look back to the previous Saturday, and you will be like, oh my god, I can't believe I was worried about that. This is even more difficult than that. Yeah, that it's going to happen. It's just a progressive, and that's how the course is divided. It kind of starts from relatively easy. I know for you guys it's not easy, but it kind of builds up. But you will look back at HTML and CSS, and you'll be like, I have like bigger things to worry about than HTML and CSS. Okay. Um, I monitor Slack even if I'm not able to answer all the questions. I know TAs are doing a great job and you guys are helping each other, but I see all the questions. You guys are asking really good questions at this time. And then, what I notice is people are helping each other out. Please, I cannot thank you guys enough. Please keep doing it. People post questions. It's not possible for the TAs or myself to answer it right away. But there are people I see, they're responding, they're helping others. They're like, hey, I did this way. Give it a try. So keep doing that. And people who are not active on Slack, I would definitely recommend them. Please get on Slack. Make sure you have Slack on your mobile phones. You are checking the messages. Again, that's the number one communication for myself also. That's how I communicate, and that's how people are posting their questions. All right. So please keep doing that. And then the last part is extremely important. Again, as I said, I won't teach everything. There's no possibility that I can teach every single HTML tag or going forward anything else, right? What I am here to do is give you an overview, give you the more important points. The rest of the things you guys will have to figure out. And that's how the reality is also when you're working. You can ask anybody, that's how it is. They give you the problem and it's up to you to solve that. Okay, you Google it, you find some different how to solve that issue, and then you come up with a solution. Okay, so you guys are doing great. Keep doing it. Again, most important part, I know the homework is due next Saturday. Okay, make sure you're balancing it out, right? Today we are kicking off week 2. I'll show you what we'll be looking at this week, but don't let this week slide off just because you're working on homework. Okay, make sure you are managing time, you're spending time in your homework, and this week also. You will see the tools that we learned this week will make your homework from previous week easy, but you cannot use them. All right, again, I get that question, hey, can I use this? No, you cannot. I'm telling you right now, homework 1 is for week 1, what you have learned. There's a separate homework for week 2 that's coming next Saturday. Okay, so you cannot use Bootstrap, you cannot use whatever you're going to learn today in your previous homework. Okay, I know it makes it a lot easier, but you cannot use it. That's the purpose. Okay, you have the next homework is more appropriate to what we are going to be learning week 2. Okay, so make sure you're balancing your time. You're doing the activities from this week also, because when the next homework comes in, you're going to be working whatever you learned this week. Okay, everybody clear on that? All right, let's see. Everybody is able to access the GitLab site. All right, everybody, I'm hoping nobody has come. There was a couple of people, but that was just the access issues. By now, everybody should be able to access GitLab and should be able to see all the exercises. I uploaded this week's material. Everybody saw that, right? It has presentation, activities, homework, everything. If you are done with week 1, people were asking me, you can please feel free to start homework 2 if you want, right? There's no restriction. You can keep working on ahead. It's totally fine. That's why I upload everything initially, so that people who want to see what's coming up, do the exercises, they are free to do that. Okay, if everybody has access, I'm going to kind of start I want you guys to clone the repo from GitLab so that you can get exercises, and you are going to be pulling every week or every after the class so that you get the solutions and everything. Here's what I prefer. You clone the repo and you keep it separate. You don't modify it. Okay. The activities, copy those and bring it over to some other folder. Okay, then modify those activities and keep this one separate, because I'm going to upload the solutions. Then you can do a pull on this one. You will get everything back. If you start modifying this one, you're going to get merge conflicts and all that stuff. You don't want that, right? The reason is you cannot modify, you cannot push anything to this repo. You don't have permission. It's a read only thing. But you will get merge conflicts. So the better way I have seen is clone it, keep it separate. You want to work on any activity, copy it from here, bring it to a different folder, work on it, whatever you want, and then this will still be clean and nice. Okay, give it a try. It'll take few sessions to get used to it, but we'll get there. Okay. All right. Submission. Please make sure you submit something. Don't get an I. Whatever you are able to complete, submit it. There's a nice input box. You can put in your README file what you were trying to do, what you achieved, what you left over, or something that you can go back and rework. But make sure you submit something. Again, you have the option later on. You can go back, redo the activity, redo the homework, and ask one of the TAs, and they will regrade it. Okay, you have that option. All right, but make sure you submit something. If you get a late on that, that is something that is not under our control. If it says late submission, it's going to be late submission forever. Okay, so make sure you submit it. At least don't get a late submission. Later on, you can go back and then update it and tell the TAs, and they will regrade it. Okay, everybody good on that? Understand? Okay. Office hours, you guys already know that. You guys are there. Everybody found where to see the videos. I'm uploading them on bootcamp spot. Excellent. All right. So let's go ahead and see what we covered really quick, and then we will start off this week. Okay. All right. The first thing, we started with full stack development. All right. Let's see. This is so that I can learn your names better. Let's see. Christina. Did I say that right? Okay. So what do you think is full stack development? What is full stack development to you? When I say full stack, what comes to your mind? Okay. So full stack, we talked about technologies, right? Full stack means front end and back end. Does that ring a bell? Okay. So what do you think is front end? What do you think is back end?
What we're doing now is front end.
Okay, excellent. Yeah.
Back end.
All right. So full stack includes both the front end and back end. Front end is mostly the HTML, CSS, JavaScript. Back end is more server side, your databases, your Node.js, and all that stuff. Okay. Well, Luis, what do you think? Did I say that right? Luis, right? What do you call yourself?
Hackers would be common.
Hack. I'll call you hackers. Well, I'll call you Luis. Okay, is that cool? All right. So these are technologies that kind of come under full stack. Do you think you can name some of them, all of them?
One React Node.
React. This is React. Okay. Node.js.
Is that Express?
Express. Yes.
And then
The last one. Does anybody know the last one?
is it
What?
Ruby?
What is it?
Ruby?
No. M.
Yeah.
MongoDB. That's the database. All right. So what do you think is the front end and what do you think is the back end? Shauna, you know that? Just take a guess.
The node is the back end.
Node is the back end. Yes. What else? Let's start from here. MongoDB. What do you think is back end, front end? Back end. Express. Back end. React. This is the tricky part. React is not back end. It's front end.
But we don't learn it till
Oh, we
after
learn
back
it.
end.
Right. And why? Because React is, you need to know these things before you can get to React. But React, if you look at the documentation and they say it's a UI tool, and that's why it's called React.js. It's kind of, they say they are doing front end with React. That's what they kind of advertise themselves. So in full stack, we consider React as a front end. What about Node.js? It's a back end, right? So React over here is considered front end. And if you look at their documentation, you don't have to do it right now, but you will see that they say they are more like a UI based, they don't even call them some framework. They say it's a library, okay? It's a JavaScript library. That's what they say. So React is considered front end. These three are basically back end, okay? Everybody good? Questions? All right. So we are going to learn all of these in basically what I like to call in the third phase of the program, which is towards the end. But you will see that what we learn until then, these would be easier to understand. Okay, and I don't want to go in more details, but you need to learn HTML, you need to learn CSS, you need to learn JavaScript before you can learn this. Okay, these won't make sense right now, but once we get to it, you will be like, okay, I see where this is coming from. All right. Let's see. Introduction to console. Then we looked at the console commands, right? Let's see. Chris. Let's see that. Okay. Some of the commands we saw. I want to switch directories. CD. Everybody good? Change directory. That's probably the most used one. You guys are using GitHub now, and Git CD is probably one of the more used ones. Okay. Then we saw some ls. That's another one. Listing. You would list all the directories and everything over there. What else? What else are you guys using that's more? PWD. Okay. Anybody else? What else? Which one? Touch. Okay. MKDIR. Okay. All right. You guys are actually using those. I just like click Visual Studio plus sign and create one. That's good. I know I teach them, but at some point I'm like, that's like too much typing. Just click the plus. So, well, that's good. All right. Ooh. Okay.
I think everybody got the quiz about how to fill in everything.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's good. That's good. How did you guys do on the quiz? Yeah, I forgot there was
Well, I guess it wasn't a quiz.
It wasn't a quiz, but it's a checkpoint. Officially, I'm supposed to say it's a checkpoint, which doesn't count towards anything. How was that? Did you guys do okay? All right. Okay, that's good. All right. Let's get back. All right. So HTML. Then we looked at our first web development language, HTML. Okay. We saw some of the tags. I just gave you a brief introduction, and then you guys are working on their homework. Kind of gets the idea about what goes into HTML. Okay. Again, your browser understands only three languages: HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Right? It does not understand React. It does not understand Node.js. It does not understand jQuery. We'll see how we make browser understand. But basically, these are the only three languages your browser understands. Okay. And we are on HTML. Then we looked at CSS also. All right. GitHub, or I should say Git. We looked at Git. Okay. How's everybody feeling about Git? Kind of getting it, right? Everybody understand the difference between GitHub and GitLab and Git? Okay. All right. Difference between clone and pull. All right, Goose, go ahead.
The clone is when you download the repository,
Mhm.
and then the pull is when you update the download.
Okay. So how many times do I do a clone versus how many times do I have to do a pull?
You only clone it once.
Excellent.
You deleted it.
Okay. Wow.
You just updated the
That's the most complete answer I've gotten. Yeah. Everybody getting it? So you clone it once, unless you delete it, right? People miss out that part, but that's good. So unless you delete it, you clone it once and then you keep pulling, right? That's what you would do with the GitLab. The activities that I upload, you will clone it once, and then you're going to just keep pulling so you can get the new material. Okay? Git add everything, then do a git commit, and then do a git push, right? Okay? All right. Then we looked at CSS. All right. Let's see. Trying to remember your name. Is it Adriel? I saw that.
Yeah.
Adriel?
Yeah.
All right. Go ahead. So what are the 3 ways I can add my CSS to my HTML? 3 different ways, yeah.
Assets.
Okay. What do you mean assets?
So basically, when it's over there, you like
Separate it out? Okay.
that's part like the hashtag.
Oh, no. So I'm saying you want to add CSS to your code.
So adding CSS to my code.
Yeah.
So basically links.
Links, yeah, that's the first one. Okay.
Much better when I have it.
The other 2 are bad ones, but I wouldn't blame you if you don't remember those. But do you remember? Okay. The first one, Adriel said was using the link, which is the best one I said, and you guys are probably using it. There are 2 more. Kiloran. There's Cloran?
Yeah, just kill.
Okay.
It's fine.
Kill?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I know.
So if I say kill, this is recording. Please don't think I'm saying something I'm referring to kill. All right, kill. Go ahead. There are 2 other ways.
You can go in your head tag.
Okay.
And do style.
Style. Okay. You guys see? So go ahead. Use the style tag in your head. All right. The last one.
You can use style tags like in the actual body. Like
Right.
I
Okay.
don't remember the syntax.
Whatever she's saying, the concept arise. It's just the words that's not correct. She said you can use the style tag in your body, right? It's not a style tag. What is it? Go ahead. What is it? Inline. Yeah. But what do you call that? What is it? Attribute. Who said that? Attribute. It's an attribute. I just want to make sure you guys use the right words also. She's right. Everybody is right. That's a concept. But the last way is you can use it as an attribute, and it's inline CSS. And the style over there would be an attribute. It's not going to be a tag. It's not going to be a select or anything. It's going to be an attribute, right? Just like image source, right? Source is an attribute. Same thing over there. Style would be an attribute over there. Okay, excellent. Before we go on, so now we talk about CSS selectors. So there are 3 different ways you can use CSS selectors. Go ahead, Basi.
So one is to tag the actual HTML tag that you're using, so body or
Right. So the first one is using the element selector. That's what it's called. So those are the HTML elements or the HTML tags, and you can style them. All right.
the next one for classes would be period, the class that you're referring to.
Mm-hmm.
And the third one would be hashtag / the ID of the specific element you're trying to change.
Okay. So why would I use classes versus identifiers or ID selectors?
ID selectors would be if you want to change a specific element
Mhm.
each time on a page. Classes would allow you to change a number of different elements using the least amount of code possible.
Right. Excellent. All right. So ID is extremely unique selector, and that would make sure that only one element is kind of styled. Okay. Classes is the most used of all 3s, and you will see dots everywhere, right? If you open up any page, you will see dot class selectors being used everywhere, and that's the more widely used one. IDs are kind of rare, and people don't try to add CSS to the element selectors. Why? Because when the CSS is huge, and somebody else is trying to modify, it's kind of hard to track. If I use the everything on my web page, which is a link, is going to be styled, right? So it's not one of the preferred ones. The preferred one is you use a class and then style it. Okay, so be careful if you're using the element one, because every element would be styled. ID is also kind of rarely used. It's kind of hard to track down because that's the unique one, and and if somebody is trying to debug your code and try to find out, it's the most unique one, so they'll have a hard time kind of figuring out which exactly is this class that you're using, which exactly the selector you're using. Okay, so classes is the more widely used and preferred, but again, there are use cases for both of them. So once you are doing, especially your homework, you guys kind of it will naturally come to you whether I should use an ID or a element selector. Okay. Did anybody actually use the ID or the element one in their homework? You're using it? Is there a specific use case that the classes were not working, or you just wanted to use it?
In order to get like the paragraphs, like to actually go to the right of the image, you need to float the image and the body.
Okay. So, so my question was, the class selector would it be not possible with that, or is there a reason that you use an identifier or an element?
I think
It'll work. Okay. Okay.
I'm still trying to figure all this out.
Okay. No, that's fine. I was trying to see if there was a unique case where yes, Kelly.
So in the navigation bar,
Okay.
that one little box that has your name, I put that as an element of each one.
Okay. So you styled H1, but if you use H1 anywhere else, everything is going to be styled.
Yeah, but since you only have H1,
Yeah. But if you have a second web page and that also is H1, that's also going to be styled.
you do it on
They're what? You okay? You want to make them consistent and make sure all the H1s. Yeah, that's a good use case. So if you want to make sure.
Under the header part, you could just put that under the head.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
And style the header.
Yeah, just style the header basically with the CSS
Yeah, that's so good.
file, basically.
So you see how many different options there are? Yeah, both of you guys are right. You can do whichever makes more sense to you. Yeah, you can style the H1, then all your web pages that use H1 are styled, and maybe that's what you want to do. You want to make them consistent and make sure somebody else comes in and jumps in your code and they use H1. You want to make sure that everybody's using the same color or fonts or whatever. Yeah, or you could use the header tag and then style the header and then make sure all your elements are not being styled. All right, different ways. All right, you guys saw the flow concept. Again, it's a little bit confusing. It's just how the HTML elements are. You're using float left and float right and all that stuff. Kind of, so you found some elements like div and ps that kind of start always. It starts from your left and kind of goes this way. And if the element kind of takes up the whole space, it's going to push the next one kind of down or push it on the right side, right? Then you saw the float left and float right properties to make sure. Again, it's more like a trial and error. Keep trying, see what works. I wish I can say it's like an exact science, but I've seen it's something works, something doesn't work. CSS is kind of weird. I don't really like CSS. Again, as I said, I don't really have an aesthetic sense. I can code the backend. Maybe that's why I'm a backend developer, but I've always struggled with CSS. Then you guys look at the box model. This is really important. It kind of helps you understand how these elements are. It will help you understand which way the elements flow. Content, this is your actual element. All right. Then you have three more things. What I like to think padding is my comfort zone. All right. So, my comfort zone, I can try something and kind of increase my comfort zone or, kind of keep, this is more related to this content over here. So this is my kind of comfort zone. Margin to me is like my personal space. So, between two people, this is my personal space. That's what margin does, right? Remember, if you increase the margin, space between two elements can increase or decrease. That's kind of like the personal space versus my comfort zone. That's how I think about padding and margin. My border is, of course, the border around it. If you increase the border, the width and the length kind of goes increase or decrease. Okay. So this is called the CSS box model. Then you guys looked at some of the positioning. Static doesn't do anything. Relative is the one that kind of moves around your elements. Fixed is based on the page, right? Versus the whole viewport. That's the difference between your static and fixed and absolute, right? Based on your viewport. That your browser screen is called viewport. Okay, based on that. Then absolute has the parent and child relationship. Right? That's probably one of the more difficult ones, and a lot of people might be struggling with the homework with this thing, right? Again, try a few things. Of course, we are here to help. Give it a try, see what's working, what's not. But the homework is really good, especially what's called easy. I don't know why they call it easy. I guess I have to put some name. Start with that, of course, and then once you're done with that, give the second one a try. Okay. All right. Resources, W3 schools I've already mentioned. CSStricks.com, that's a really good one too. Mozilla.org, this is the official site which kind of keeps track of your HTML, CSS, and JavaScript documentation. Give this a try, but this is like the official thing. Sometimes it's kind of hard to read, but you will get there. But that's like the more official one. Okay. Um, let's see, Stack Overflow. You guys already know that. I haven't tried the other ones, but give it a try. But definitely, this is a good one. CSS Tricks, W3 Schools. You're already using it, and this is if you want to see like the more official version. All right. Questions, issues, anything? Everybody good? Question? No? All right. One of the things I want to mention. I saw some comments. I think there was some discussion on Slack. Difference between div and sections. All right. So I'm going to clarify some things between divs and sections. There is absolutely no difference when it comes to coding between div and sections. All right. What you are going to achieve with divs, you can achieve the same thing with sections. Okay. Divs are, they are kind of dividing your web page, right? You have your buttons, you have your forms, you put them in a div, you can style your divs. You can do the exact same thing with section. When it comes to coding part, there's no difference between those two. Okay. What has happened is section is a new thing in HTML5. Okay. If you look at some of the web pages, you will see a lot of divs, like hundreds and thousands of divs in a web page, right? So in HTML5, they came up with these tags. These are called semantic tags, right? What does it mean? When we look at it, it kind of makes more sense to us, okay? Section versus a div. Div is, from the programmer perspective, I understand what a div is, right? But if somebody else sees it, they'll be like, I don't know what div is. But if you see section, anybody can see and they're like, okay, it's a section of something. Okay? So it's more semantic. That's why these elements were introduced. And they were introduced because of SEOs, search engine optimization. Google kind of looks through your web page and tries to find what you're trying to sell or what the website is. If you have these sections, it's easier for those search engines to see. If you have a header tag or a section tag, then they will just jump to this one and try to read what's going on over here versus trying to parse through all the divs and try to understand what your website is actually doing, right? Just to improve those things, they kind of introduce these semantic tags. Again, from the coding perspective, anything that you can do with a section, you can do with a div, and vice versa. There's no difference when it comes to coding. Yes?
Is there a difference between section and article?
Section and what?
And article?
No. Okay. That's a good point. So I'm coming to that. Now when we talk about sections, these are some of the, let's say this is your web page. You have a header, you have content, then you have some content over here, you have a sidebar, and you have a footer. That's kind of like your everyday website that you go to. Okay. Within section, you have different tags. These are the ones that are introduced in HTML5. Again, there's absolutely no difference between these and divs. There might be a slide with a font thing, but otherwise, when it comes to coding, you can replace each one of them with a div, and your code will still be fine. Okay. These are, again, more semantic, more for us humans to kind of look at your web page and understand if you're using it correctly. Can I have a footer in my header tag? Yeah, I can. Computer one, when your browser loads, it won't know the difference. But should I do it? Please don't do it. Don't do that, right? Just because we can do it, we are not supposed to do it, but don't do that. So header tag is more if somebody comes into your company, they're trying to read your code. If I see the header tag, I'll be like, okay, this is where all the code for header section goes. Okay? When I look at the nav tag, this is my navigation bar. Okay, all the navigation that I see on the web page, this is where my code is. So I can jump to nav bar, nav code, nav tag, and then look at the code over there. Okay? Sections kind of tell me what it is. Okay? Again, section and article, both are kind of, when it comes to code, both are same. It's how you take it, right? It's open. Some people think, this kind of qualifies as a section. Some people are, well, this is an article. For example, like a news website, right? There are articles over there. So this tag is for them. Okay, you can also use it. Again, when it comes to coding, section and article, these are open to your interpretation. What do you think is a section? What do you think is an article? Maybe you're developing a news website, and you have articles over there, right? So you can use the article tag over there. Maybe it's a different site. You still can use the article. Again, there's no like a coding difference between them. It's more open to you. What do you think is a section? What do you think is a article? Same with the aside tag, right? Some of the content you want to be static, like this will always remain over there, and this is the content that's kind of shifting around. So use a aside tag over there. Okay, can I use a div over here? Yes, you can. Can I use a footer over there? Yeah, you can. I mean, it won't do anything. Okay, it won't break your code, but it's not good practice. Okay, same thing, footer. So that's where all your footer code goes over there. So these are some of the sections, some of the new HTML5 semantic elements that they have introduced. Again, if you have to be careful because these are only present in HTML5, and if your website is open in a browser that does not support HTML5, or somebody is using a really old version of Internet Explorer, then your website may not be able to kind of load properly. So that's one of the, I won't say drawbacks, but one of the things that companies are looking for. They try to see what their audience is, and they try to make sure that if the audience is using a really old version of IE, right, they try to make sure that they don't use some of the HTML elements because they won't be able to render it. But these days, I would think it's pretty safe. I think pretty soon they're going to sunset HTML4, and they're making like a mandatory thing that every website is using HTML5. I think I read somewhere, so they're kind of shifting towards that. Okay, so I would think 98% of the time it's kind of safe to use any one of those. Your website won't be running on some old browser that doesn't support these. Okay. Any questions? Everybody understand what's the difference between div and sections? Yes.
Do you use them the same way, like div class equals whatever? Like do you use the
Same. Same syntax, same everything. Yeah. And as Kelly was mentioned, this is easier. You can style your header, right? You don't have to worry about H1 and those tags. And you can style your header, then it's always going to be that. It's kind of very specific, and your code will be styled. And everywhere you use the header tag, everything would be styled the same way. It's kind of easier. So this would be a use case where it is okay to use the element selector versus a class one. Because if it's a header, then you're assuring that anybody who uses the header tag in your code have to have the same style that you have created. So this kind of gives you an opportunity to style the elements versus using classes. That could be a good use case for it. Okay? All right, now which ones should you be using? Divs or section? Again, when you're working somewhere, it's what your company is using. If your code base is entirely on divs, then you'll have to kind of stick to it. If they are using sections, then you have to stick to it. Okay, that's what it comes down to. What your code base, what your company's direction is, and what they're using. You will see a lot of websites still using divs, right? It's not, just right click and inspect. You will see a lot of divs over there. So a lot of websites are still on that. So if that's, wherever you're working, they're using divs, you'll start using divs. If they are using sections and they have a set defined, usually what you will see is there will be like coding standards, and they will say, hey, if you think this is a section, then use this tag. If you think this is an article, use this tag. So it's more like a coding standard, and that's what everybody signs off in a company. So go there and see what they're using and kind of get in the flow of that. That's what it comes down to it. From the coding perspective, there's no difference between section and divs. Okay. All right. Any questions on section and divs? Everybody good? Okay. This is what I was talking about, using a CSS class or an ID. Again, if you're using your new semantic elements, you can use the element selector so that make sure everything is the same across. If you're using divs, then definitely class names would be more popular. That's why class names are, because you cannot differentiate between one div and a div until there's a class name or you're styling it differently. Okay, this is more like a rare thing. Again, I haven't come across a use case where you would not use a class name versus an ID. usually because the elements you will see are reusable. That's what people try to aim for. That if I have an element, I can use the same across my different web pages. So that's why they have those class names. But again, the ID option is there. If just for your homework, just for your practice, you want to create an ID element just for practice so that you know how it is done, go ahead and create an ID and style that. But otherwise, I think all your homework, you can completely do it with class name. I think that's what I think. If somebody comes across a unique case, please let me know. Share it with the class. I'm kind of curious if there's a unique case that only this will work and none of the other two possibilities are there. Okay. All right. Let's see. Chrome DevTools. Let's go back here. All right. So you guys might have seen this on Saturday, but I'll go again. Chrome DevTools is a really, really good tool to debug your HTML, CSS code. All right. We'll come to JavaScript also, but for now, HTML and CSS. So if you right click, do a inspect, or there's an option over here as well. Where's my settings? Let's see. That's not task manager. I'll look it up. You can get to it a different way, but the easier way is right click and inspect, and this will show up over here. This is what they call Chrome DevTool. All right. There are different tabs. For now, elements. This tab is good. When we get to JavaScript, we'll be using console a lot, and I'll show you at some point applications. We'll see some more. Right. For now, the first tab, elements, is good. Okay. And then you see on your this side is for CSS. This is for your HTML, and this side is for your CSS code. Okay. All right. Now, what can I do with my Google my Chrome tools? So you are working on your website and you open it up, you write some code, and then the live share the thing kind of comes up, and you see a web page, and then you're like, okay, I need to modify something. What do? You go back to your code, modify something, and then reload the web page and see, oh, it's still not right. Okay. This will save you that trip going back and forth. You can modify your web page over here and then see what code works and then use the same code in your code. Okay. So what can I do here? Let's see if I want to inspect this image. I want to see what this image is, right? If I do select, there's one way, this arrow thing, click this arrow, and then you can select anything. So you see this is kind of highlighting. These are all tags or kind of sections that they have created. You see they're using this div with a unique ID. So if I click here, it will take me directly to the code that is responsible for this. So it's an image tag with an ID, and this is what they're using. And this is the image that is being loaded for this thing. Okay, let's suppose I want to modify this image. Let's modify the. Let's see. Redden. Copy. Is it my dark mode or is it loading? I just can't see it. Let's see. Let's try this. I know. No, I know. I think I'm just loading a different. Image that doesn't show up. Let's see. All right. It's an image that kind of. Oops. Let's go back here and fix this. So I kind of changed this, right? So what happened over here? You can change any code over here. You can change the CSS. Let's see. Change the fonts, anything that you want. Okay, and it will show you the live preview of the code that you're working on. Okay, you can change the image. You can change the fonts, anything that you want. This will save you. Let's suppose you're trying to do the flow. You're trying to do checking your flow left, your other CSS. You can modify those things over here. You will see all your classes being loaded over here. Modify those, and it will change right over here. You don't even have to go to your Visual Studio right now. What this will help is once you are satisfied what you are trying to see, okay, then you can say, okay, this is what is working. It will save you a trip. Copy the same code and put it on Visual Studio, and you will have the same web page. Okay. Um, Again, when you are working in a homework and you come to your TAs or you come to me, the first thing I would do is, okay, show me what's going on, and I would right click and do an inspect and see what CSS is being loaded over here. Okay. So what I'm trying to see is, okay, what's going on, what is the final result, and what needs to be modified to make this work. Okay. Again, I changed few things over here, and let's see if you can change this color. Let's say background color. This is my dark image that's not letting me. This is a different one. Oh, this is doing something. Should have worked. Okay, so let's try. Okay, so it's changing the color. You see this yellow here. It's just my background, the dark mode that's not letting you see that color. But you can change all of this. Now, if I change anything on this site like Google, am I changing actual Google? No, right? It's just on if you refresh this, it's going to come back and kind of come back to the same one. So anything that you are modifying, you are not actually modifying in the code. So always remember that once you modify it, you have to go back to Visual Studio and kind of update your code. Otherwise, it's not going to reflect those changes. The changes are just over here for your preview, and that's how you kind of use for debugging purposes. When we get to JavaScript, we'll be using this console a lot. You will see what happens over here, but for now, your HTML over here and your CSS over here. Okay, now if you're having problems with your homework, you're saying, oh, this is not floating, this is not doing, right click, inspect, and see what CSS is kind of showing up over here. All right, try to debug from that. Start with that and see if you can fix it over here, and then go back and change your code and see if it works. Yes.
It's also really our whole it's like a box model in here as well. You can inspect your elements and you can actually go
Yeah.
to the padding and margins and just move them up and down arrow. And you can watch it shifting the size of your element.
Right. So this, if you scroll at the bottom for the CSS part, it will, whatever element is selected, it will give you the box model for that as well. So this one looks like it has a margin of 22, padding, and this is the content. Let's look at the image. Okay, so it's a 500 by 200 padding, border, margin. So you can kind of look at those things as well. Okay. Any questions? So let's do this. Open. Go ahead and let's do an activity. Open any website that you like. Kind of modify some of the things over there, color, fonts, and see how it works. And then once you have modified, just take a screenshot, post it on Slack, and we'll take a look at how people are, how imaginative you guys are. So pick any site, change few things, Slack it out, and let's see what you guys have. Yes. Why? I don't see it. Nick. Ethan is relaying his true feelings about how he feels about the course. Is that what it is? You should update their website with this. Well, Brooke was able to modify Google. I don't know what I was doing wrong. It wouldn't work for me. Who's poor Dan? Who's the poor Dan me that he posted? All right. Let's do the next one. You guys are having a lot of fun with this. Me too. Well, thankfully nobody went on my LinkedIn and modified pages and posted. I've had, I've had, yeah, okay. I've had people who go to my LinkedIn and then post it over here. So thankfully nobody did that. Or have I opened the floodgates now? All right. So we'll for the next 10 minutes or maybe like 7 minutes work on especially the homework that you guys are looking on. Take a look at that. Right click, inspect, and modify something, and see how it is reflecting until 7:45, and then we'll take a break and we'll start on the next section at 8 o'clock. Okay. So work on your homework or any website that you have built. Do the same thing. Modify. Make sure you understand how to kind of debug those issues. Maybe you are having an issue, take a look at it in the inspector and see if you can fix it. And then take a break and we'll start at 8 o'clock. All right. Well, there it is.
I know, man. It's like before class, like he just went to town and he was like, oh, geez, no, wait, wait. I was just like, Well, then now that yeah, that's where I used to have yeah, so
Mm-hmm.
I was trying to hack into my account again, but I actually ended up just remaking both my passwords for Git, but it still won't let me like inside even after that. Is there a different place I should be looking?
So when you were creating your the SSH key,
Mhm.
did you enter a phrase?
I don't think so.
Did just press enter? Oh, it doesn't. Just press enter.
No, it asked me for a thing.
Oh,
Like it gets me past it gets me past like the regular phrase for my thing, but it doesn't do
Okay.
like the actual like
the password
Git,
that you
yeah,
have
that
set.
one. And I just redid both the GitLab and the both of those accounts.
Okay.
And I entered in on the bootcamp one as well, and I actually redid that one just to make sure. But yeah, I'm not sure. I tried the 3 passwords. Just not sure.
Yeah, that should be the one that you use to log into your.
To the bootcamp?
No, to your GitLab.
Okay.
GitLab, right?
Yeah, the
Yes,
GitLab one. I
yes,
just
yes.
reset both of those.
How about um, how about create a new SSH key but without the passphrase? When it says enter a passphrase, just press enter.
Okay.
Create a new one and then put it over there in GitLab and then try it.
Okay.
Okay, try that and see if that works.
You're gonna keep trying to see how that space shows up. Get rid of it. Did you position this now? It is part of your header, right? It's just like yes, you did with I think next year you should go. Right.
Yes,
to
sir.
get out of git log where
Uh,
there's just a colon,
colon Q and
colon Q, and then the
exclamation mark.
exclamation.
Yeah.
I wonder if it's because they have because I did mine in now and did it from and it also this oh, it's a div, right? Okay. So I went to bed. I literally like went to bed because I was like I was getting headache. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go to bed. And in bed, I'm like, oh, just a plain div. So I can do. Only the bed. I just forgot about it. Okay. Right. Well, if you do it div, so give it like a class. Yeah, how much
What is it?
It's sitting right out there.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right. So if FBI key, walks in crashing, it's Jeremy's fault. So he's the one they are for. So don't be surprised now. All right. So let's get back. Three things I want you guys to look at. The first thing we are going to look at is how to load multiple CSS. How to load multiple CSS files. Okay, so basically this means that I have more than one CSS files. How do I link them and how do I load them and what's the effect of loading multiple CSS files? Okay, so let's go ahead and break this up. Create some sample projects. I'm going to call it multiple CSS. Okay. Create index.html. I'm going to create a style. I'm going to call it one style1.css. Okay. Close this. Some basic HTML. Just need to create a h1 tag. This is from style1.css. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and add a style. I'm going to use the element selector. I just have one, so I won't worry about it. Just to add some basic background color, make it yellow. Okay, let's go ahead and run this. Okay, I don't see my background yellow. What am I missing here? I didn't link it. Excellent. So let's go ahead and link this. And this is going to be my style, my CSS. I should show. Okay, this is a basic, extremely basic HTML and CSS that we've been looking at. Okay, now I'm going to add another CSS file. I'm going to create a new one, and I'm going to call it style2.css. Got created outside. Okay, that's better. And then I'm going to have the same element, and this time I'm going to change the background color to something different. Okay, so now I have two CSS files. Okay, and I'm only loading one right now. Let's see what happens when I load the second one also. Style. Okay, so what just happened? So I have my two CSS files. Okay, style one has some properties to kind of style my h1 element, and what it does is it sets it to yellow. Okay, the second one sets it to green, but I see green over here. What's going on? Oh, let me zoom this so you guys can actually see my code. Okay, what does this tell us? Any idea what's going on? It's kind of replacing it. So anything that comes later on, it's replacing the style that's in my first one. Okay, so one point over here is if you have multiple files, the second one or the latest one is the one that takes the precedence. Okay, now if I switch them around, if I make this, oops, go on the top, what's going to happen now? It stays yellow, right? Why? Because this one has green and this one has yellow. Okay, so the last one, so what this tells us is when my HTML code is being loaded, it starts from line 1, reads it, executes. This is how it goes, line by line. Right? It finds the first one, loads the element, and then it finds the second one, and then updates it. Okay? So you will have cases that you will have multiple CSS files. And can anybody think of a use case? Why would I have multiple CSS files? Yes, please.
I just want to link like some Google fonts.
Okay.
So I have like a normal CSS.
Okay.
All my styles, and then I just link some fonts.
Okay. So you're using somebody else's CSS file, like a third party, like Google CSS file. Okay, that's one use case. That there will be cases where you have to use a CSS that somebody else has built. So that's one. Why would you divide your CSS into two different portions? Yes, Kevin. Mm-hmm. It's yes, yes. I'll get back to that. I'll show you and write some code and we'll see. So the question is, if I have can I have different element selectors in those files? Yes. And what's going to happen if I have one over here and it's not present over there? We'll take a look at it. Okay. So let's see. Let's say I have an H2. Okay. This is another heading. Okay. So this shows up over here. Right, so let me go back and kind of put this one on the top again. Okay, I'm going to style H2 in my first one. Okay, set it to blue. So what happened over here? So you have this tab, but I don't have H2 in the second one, but that's okay. It's going to only overwrite the ones that are present in both ones. Okay? So if the elements are present in both CSS files, the second one or the latest one that comes in is the one that's going to take precedence. Okay, so it's going to overwrite everything that's from the first one. If it's not present, then it's just going to ignore and use the one that's already there. Okay, does that answer your question? All right, good question. Okay, now the use case that I would see is that I would have two different CSS files. If you're using just one, for example, what happens is it becomes huge, right? You're using a lot of CSS over there. So what could be a use case is that if I have a lot of components or a lot of HTML elements over here, I want to divide my CSS file so that it doesn't become like 1,000 lines of CSS over here. So that's what I would do is I would have my could be division that makes more sense to you. I would put my first half of CSS in one file and the later part in a second CSS file. Okay, so that if I'm trying to debug, if I'm trying to find something, I don't have to go to my only CSS file and keep scrolling down until I find something. Okay, just to make it short, that could be a use case that you would divide your CSS file into multiples and give it a better name. Let's suppose my CSS is related to only my navigation bar. So I could create a navigation bar CSS, okay, and that would tell me that all the styles that are related to my navigation bar are in this file, right? I don't even have to look in the code. I can look at my directory, and if it says nav.css, somebody who's working on the project with you, they will be like, okay, this nav.css has all the code that relates to navigation bar, right? If I'm not working on navigation bar, I can ignore it safely because none of the code that interests me is here. I could have a header.css file. This means that all my header code is kind of over there. Okay, so it's more to keep your code more clean. That's one of the use cases that I would say. The other is if you're trying to use somebody else's CSS, and we'll take a look at it in a minute, you will have multiple CSS files. Okay. Again, make sure you clearly understand, and you can have as many CSS files over. You could have a style 3, 4, 5. Give it a better name. Okay, but remember the one that is the last one. If there is something over here, the same elements is going to be overridden in the next one. Okay, so make sure you understand that when you're creating, if you have an H1 or you have some divs or some classes, if you have class also, same rules apply over here. You could create a class over here, all right, class CSS, and then have a same class CSS over here. It's going to get overridden. Same rules over here. It doesn't matter if it's an ID, if it's a class selector, or if it's a element selector. Okay, the same rules apply over here. All right, any questions? Everybody understand the multiple CSS, how they load? Again, the first one gets loaded first, the second one, it just goes in this order. Okay, from top to bottom. All right, here's the next part that I want to see. So do I have any CSS added to my web page now? No, there's no CSS, right? Now, let me add an element over here, h3. Okay. So, where do you think the fonts are coming from? Fonts and the font size. Where have you seen the font and font size? What is it? Right. But with our knowledge, where do the fonts come from? Default. It's a default. Okay. But still, what are font sizes are part of? They're still part of CSS, right? Am I loading any CSS? I'm not loading CSS, but I still see different fonts. So what is happening over there? Why do I see, from the definition of HTML, it's just a text, right? It should just output simple text without any styling, without any font sizes or font family, right? But I'm not adding any CSS, but still there is some CSS coming, right? There shouldn't be any fonts if there was no CSS. So let's go to our tool and take a look at this inspect. Okay, do you see over here? Did I write this CSS anywhere? I didn't style my H1, right? The one that I had, I kind of commented it out. Okay? But I still see CSS over here. So where is this CSS coming from? The browser. You see this user agent style sheet? So every browser has a default style sheet. They have a CSS that is built in. All right? If they did not have a CSS, these tags are not, the H1s are semantic tags. You see the semantic H1, H2, H3? These are basically our semantic tags. If you don't have any CSS, the browser does not load that CSS, the default CSS, all of them are going to look the same, right? And that's what HTML is. HTML is just text, right? These font sizes, font family, all these things are properties of CSS, okay? And if I'm not writing any CSS, it has to be somewhere. And what happens is every browser has a style sheet, has a CSS file that automatically gets loaded, right? Chrome has one, Microsoft Edge has one, uh, the Safari has one. All browsers have their own default CSS. Okay, if you Google default CSS for browsers, you will see or user agent style. That's what these are called. Okay, so every browser, you can look at the code. Just Google and you can see these are all open source. You click and you can see the exact CSS that these are being loaded. Okay, what I did was I just Googled default CSS for browsers or user agent style sheet for browsers, and you will come to a web page that actually specifies each browser what CSS they are loading. Okay, and it's all open source. You can see exact CSS, what's going on, and everything that's being loaded. Okay, now what happens when I set my CSS in my code? Right, now going back to a multiple CSS concept, what is happening over here? My browser CSS gets loaded first, and then I'm basically overwriting the browser CSS. How? The browser CSS gets loaded first automatically by default, and then it comes to my code, and anything that I'm overwriting is going to go ahead and overwrite this. Okay? By default, the background for H1 is transparent or white or whatever. Okay? But when it reaches my style sheet, I'm kind of basically overriding my browser CSS. Okay, does everybody understand that concept? Okay, so understand that these fonts, these are not HTML. By default, HTML is just text. Okay, if you see the font sizes are different or the font colors are different or the tables and all that stuff, that is because your browser is loading a default CSS file. Okay, and what is happening in your code when you write your style.css, you are always overriding whatever the style sheet that your browser is loading. Okay, the browser CSS gets overridden by whatever style CSS that you have. Okay, all right, questions? Everybody understand what is going on and where this fonts are coming from? Again, it's not part of HTML. All right, it is the CSS. It has to be CSS, and we saw in our inspect tool that CSS is over here, and it's browser dependent. Okay, and you will see this file over here, the name user agent style sheet. That's the indication that browser is loading in a CSS file, and then you will have your CSS file. Okay. Now, this is important for the next part. Why do these browsers have this? What's the drawback for this default CSS? Like, okay, if I open my site in Chrome, then I go back and open in Mozilla Firefox. Firefox has their own CSS, right? If you look at the link over here, right? They have their own CSS files, right? So what's the drawback of this? What happens to my website? It's different. Okay. In today's world, it has gotten better. But if you switch back to 1990s, like 1995, where the browser war was going on, right? When the browser were coming up, what they used to do is they used to intentionally put some code that will make your website load better on, well, at that point there was Netscape Navigator. Anybody remember that? Right? So you would see some badges over there if you look at the old site that best works with Netscape Navigator or Internet Explorer, right? What was going on was that the programmers of that time would intentionally put some code that would make your website load better or look better on Netscape Navigator, but if you open the same website on IE, it will break because they didn't support that code. Okay, so the intention was they would force the people who are making websites to kind of make the website for certain browsers, so it becomes more popular. Right, these days thankfully, we have gotten over that, and it's usually most of the time your website will look fine in either Chrome, Safari, or Firefox, but there are still some differences, but most of the time it will be fine, right? So some of the website you will see that at some point you will have to write some code that is specific to Firefox or that is specific to Chrome. Probably not in this class, but when you are creating a real website in the real world, you want to make sure that your website loads in all the browsers. Okay. So usually there's a testing team, and what they do is they open the website in all major browsers, make sure it is working, especially the versions also. They would test in different versions of Chrome, different versions of IE, Edge, and make sure the website opens up in different browsers. Okay? If it doesn't, that's when you need to go back and kind of fix those issues. Okay? Because what browser are we targeting to make our websites in? Chrome? What is it? Somebody said all? Who said all? Right? That's the correct answer. We are good citizens of the world. We want our website to load in every browser. Okay? So it's just not just for Chrome. It's for all browsers. So we want to make sure that our website is loading properly in all the browsers. Okay? Let's see. All right. Before I move on, everybody understand where the CSS is coming from and the differences between browsers? Okay, so what happens is the next concept is called reset CSS. Anybody has an idea what reset CSS means? What is it? You're resetting the CSS. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's the right answer. I mean, unfortunately, you're resetting the CSS. Okay. Any more description to it?
Doesn't it allow for basically like your CSS to adjust to every browser?
Close. But how does it do it?
It just selects all like the major elements and things and just sets them all to like unified variables.
Right. Basically, what reset CSS does it goes and strips all the CSS that every browser has. Basically, strips the CSS out and kind of gives you the real HTML picture. Right. I'm going to show you how to load the reset CSS, but what it is going to do is it's going to go and then these fonts, there won't be any difference between H1, H2, and H3. All right. What it is going to do is it's going to go ahead and strip the style for this one. For whatever the font that H1 uses, it's going to go ahead and take that font out. It's going to go to H2, take that font out. It's going to reset CSS. It's going to take all the CSS that every browser loads. It's going to take that out and give you bare bone HTML. And why? So that you can go ahead and style however you want. Okay, that's what the purpose of reset CSS is. Okay, let me go ahead and show you how it works, and then we'll talk a little bit more. Maybe it'll help you guys understand better. Okay, now how do you get to reset CSS? Just Google reset CSS, and somebody has actually put some time and come up with a CSS that actually strips everything out from every browser. Okay, so that's usually the first link, and let's see if we can get to this GitHub. Okay, so this is actually CSS that you can copy and then put it in your code and load this CSS and see what happens. All right, so now there are two ways you can load the CSS. Either I can link this directly. Let me do that first. and then you guys can look at what happens as soon as I do that. Okay, link. Okay, and then I'm going to put the exact. Okay, I don't want my CSS files here for now. Okay, do you see what happened? There's no difference between H1, H2, and H3. All of these are just semantic tags, just like divs. All right, the font and everything was coming from the browser. So as soon as I put in this reset CSS, it kind of reset everything. It stripped out every CSS basically that was governing this web page. Okay, so if you look at the inspect now, and let's look at this one, inspect. Okay, the CSS that gets loaded for this one is this thing. Basically what it is doing is setting the margins to 0, padding to 0, border 0, font size, fonts, everything. Okay, similarly if you have some code for let's say tables, your list, let's go ahead and make a list. What is li supposed to do? The UL list, I should get a bullet point, right? There's no bullet point over it. Again, the bullet point is part of CSS. That's how you see it. If you use the order list, let's take a look at the order list now. Okay, order list should have numberings, but you see once I load the reset CSS, that's also not there. So basically what this tells us that all of those fancy things, these are coming from our browser CSS files, and reset will actually strip everything out and give you the real HTML. This is actually the HTML. Okay, it's just text on your web page. That's all HTML is. Okay, now why would I use reset CSS? So that it works in every browser. Now I have 100% control of my web page, and then I can go ahead and reset and then put in my style sheets over here and then do whatever I want. And this will guarantee 100% sure that my code is going to work on every single browser. Why? Because I stripped out everything is reset, and I'm 100% sure that the style that I have over here is going to work on every browser. Okay, a lot of companies, that's how they start. They don't for our projects, it's okay, you don't have to use reset CSS, but when you're working in a company, you will see that that's what they do, because they want to make sure that their website loads in every browser that's out there. Okay, and the easier way, instead of trying to debug and try to write some code, a one-off code for Chrome or Edge or Firefox, this is a better way or easier way to go about it. Just strip everything out and just start from the bottom. Okay, the downside is now you cannot use H1 like you want to do it. Okay, you will have to write a font, you will have to add fonts for H1, and then kind of so that they kind of show up over here. Let's see, font. Okay, so you'll have to actually keep writing everything from scratch. So none of your unordered list, UL list, all those elements, all of them are just going to show that as a text. That's all. Okay, that's kind of the downside. But for now, for your project, it's okay because we are not actually doing anything super crazy. Okay, but this is a concept, and I want to make sure you guys understand, because you will run into this issue, and you will see the easier way to deal with it is strip everything out and just start from the start. And you can do this in your homework if you want, or I don't know, not the next one, but if you want to give it a try, yeah, don't use this in this one, but the next one, when you're more familiar with it, if you want to try a reset CSS, I think the next one actually says that you need to use it, but I'm not sure. But if you want to give it a try, strip everything out, and then go ahead and start coding and see how this is done. Okay, so you see your H1, H2 all are same, right? There's no difference. You can, these are more semantic tags, just like div and sections. Okay, so this is the real HTML. Anything different that you see is because your browser is helping you kind of see the differences. Okay, questions? Yes.
Why would your style work on all the browsers?
Why? Because I'm saying that the font size should be 40 pixel, right? In your browser, maybe Chrome has that if you type in H1, maybe Chrome has an option that it should be 30px. Okay, let's suppose Safari has an option that this should be 40px. Okay, now if I'm using default CSS, I'm just using my H1s. If I load my website on Chrome, I'm going to see my font this size. If I load it in Safari, I'm going to see this. But instead, if I strip these both out, and I say, hey, don't use these, but use my CSS, okay, and it's going to be 50px, then every website is going to load this 50px. That's why it will be consistent. Okay, good question. Yes.
If you have a CSS attached to your H1 section there at 40px, if I go to Safari or Google Chrome,
Yeah.
and it's 30px, will it not render the CSS that I coded in my website? It would render it as 30px rather than 40, even though I set it to 40 without the reset CSS.
Yes, yes. So without the reset CSS, it's going to load it to whatever you put it. Yeah, because it's going to get overwritten. Yes. Yep. Yep. I showed you one way to load this. How am I linking? These are my local files, and this is the one that's out in the web, right? So it kind of loads it. Remember this, when we get to Bootstrap, this is going to be helpful. But basically, I have shown you two options to load a CSS file. So let's suppose somebody from you creates a CSS file, puts on GitHub. You can actually go to their GitHub and use their CSS file over here. It's going to start loading their whatever they created. Okay, so let's suppose some of you guys come up with a super awesome assignment and you're like, okay, if somebody wants to try it out, use my CSS, just upload it on GitHub, give this link it to your website, and you will be able to use their CSS. Okay, or the other way is you can copy this code as well. Okay, you don't want to go to the website, you can create your own CSS file called a reset.css. Copy this over. Okay, and then instead of this, you can just link your CSS like you have at the bottom. Make sure you read the copyright. This one is open source and everybody is free to use, and you can link it locally also. Okay, the first one is going to the internet, kind of getting this file. This one is more local. Okay, important to understand, because once you get to Bootstrap, you will see that we'll be using kind of like something similar to this. All right, any questions? Everybody good? All right, so let's do an activity. Go ahead and start on reset CSS. This is number 4. Go ahead, download or link, make sure you understand how to link the reset CSS, and make sure it is working on your end as well. And then we'll move on to hosting your websites on GitHub. So we are on activity number 4.
No, wait, I have a quick question for you. You see what, like, yours like pops up on like the see what this sign where like when you write out your book and you show on the separate side here, like the is that the problem?
Is it? I just have my browser and my Visual Studio side by side. That's all I have. So this thing and this thing, yeah, I have them side by side. That's all. Yeah. They should have kept quiet and be like, yeah, install the extra plugin. That's super secret. Yeah, he wants the browser and the code. Yeah, it opens it.
And I think you can still do like your CSM so you just so yours is still out. It only affects it if you're cleared up your CSS. So the point of it is if you don't change your font or anything like that, you just left it as it were. Let's incorporate it into a page.
What's the command is to put in the comments?
Just gonna do everything. Just that.
Oh, it's for me it's command. You guys are this like Oh, you had this word like manually typing the comment? Oh, everything? Should have mentioned it. It's, it's you're writing JavaScript, the same, but they have a different style of comment.
Yeah.
I mean, really should recognize it. Right? CSS like the same thing.
I don't know.
Yeah, good.
Oh yeah. It's interesting.
That's what I thought.
Oh yeah.
So
Yeah.
when I took my first draft, it was all and then after I started
Snowball.
Like even our
Oh, right.
They did like a dance. It's happened so
All right. Any questions? Was everybody able to get this working? Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and look at the last topic for tonight. I'm going to show you how to basically host or deploy your websites. And you will be using this method when you make a submission for your homeworks. So it's really important you understand you are able to deploy your homeworks and websites. Okay. So GitHub gives us an opportunity to deploy our website so that everybody can see it. It's called GitHub Pages. Okay, it's not a tool, but that's the feature that GitHub calls, and it's called GitHub Pages, which will let you host or basically deploy your website so that everybody can access it. Okay, now there are two ways. The first one is called personal website, and the second way is project website. So I'm going to show you both ways how to deploy your pages to GitHub. Okay, the first one is called personal. Okay, let me show you how this is done, and then you guys can go ahead and try the same thing. Okay, the first thing is I'm going to go to GitHub, and then I'm going to create a repository. All right, to create a personal website, the repository name has to be your username. Okay, whatever your GitHub username is, .github.io. Okay, this is absolutely the requirement. It has to be your username .github.io. Anything else is not going to work. Okay, so to deploy a personal website, you have to create a repository by the name, which is going to be your username, your GitHub username .github.io. Okay, and then everything else is kind of same thing. Let's give it a personal website. Don't need a git ignore, and then I'm going to go ahead and create a repository. Okay, let's go ahead and clone this. All right. Okay, this is where I want my clone to reside. So I'm going to do a git clone URL. It clones it. Let's go in. Okay. All right. So I have my README file over here, and this is my project. Okay. So I'm going to add a HTML page here. All right. So when you are deploying to GitHub and you want it to be hosted by GitHub so that everybody can access, your main HTML page has to be index.html. Lowercase, and it has to be index.html. If you deploy with any other name, GitHub is not going to recognize it. It's only looking for an HTML file with the name index. Okay, it has to be lowercase index.html. Right? It cannot be header, it cannot be main, it cannot be anything else. Right? The second thing is some people put I as an uppercase and index.html is not going to load. right? You will run into issues. It's not going to load your page. So it has to be index.html. Okay. If you have multiple pages like about, contact, and everything, that's okay, right? But your main page, your first page, has to be index.html, and this is what GitHub is looking for. It's going to look for index.html to load. Okay, so that's the second requirement. So let's go ahead and create some HTML. Let's add a heading and say this is my personal website. Let's add a style also. Style.css. Okay, some basic style. Just add a background color so we can make sure that both our files are kind of loading. Okay. Okay. Before I push my code, I'm going to run this code, make sure my code is working. Okay, so it's not working. I'm missing my style, so let's go ahead and fix that. Okay, and there it is. Okay, so this is good. My code is production ready, so I'm going to go ahead and push this code now. So do I git add, git commit, edit HTML file, HTML CSS file, and then go ahead and push it. Okay, let's go ahead and refresh. Okay, so I have my index.html and my style.css. Okay, now this, how do I access it? This is the link that should be accessible to everybody and they can look at my website. Okay, so if I select this out, you guys can go ahead and if you click that link, everybody should be able to see my personal website, right? So this is how you deploy to GitHub using the first method, personal website. Okay, so how many websites can you load if you're using this method? Just one. And why? Because it's tied to your username. Okay, so just remember, if you are doing a personal website, you can only have one of this. All right, why? Because it's tied to your username, and then this is the one that's going to be your personal website. Usually you will see people do this. If somebody goes to my username, and this is where you would put your portfolio maybe, so that the first thing that somebody comes to your GitHub, that's what they see. Right? That's why you have a personal website. But remember, you can only have one of these. Okay? Yes?
So if you added like more to the, like, you can only have one, so you can't put like slash.
Oh yeah, no, those come under. If you put slash about slash contact, those are fine. Those are like subdirectories. So subdirectory is fine. But this link is only tied to one project. You cannot have multiple projects kind of pointing to the same link. In this case, in the first case. Okay, so you can have only one project and that's kind of pointing. But yes, you can have slash about, slash contact and everything. Those are subdomains and those are fine. Okay. All right, any other questions? All right, go ahead and give it a try. Go ahead and deploy and then we will try the second method. I want to make sure you guys it's working for you guys. So again, create a repository. It has to be your username.github.io. It has to have clone it, download the code, add an HTML file. You can actually, if you have a portfolio, you can copy the portfolio code over here. Make sure it is named index.html. Otherwise, it's not going to work. Okay. And you can see if I load this website, there's no slash index slash anything. By default, GitHub is looking for slash index.html and then loads it. Okay. So create a repository by your username.github.io. Your username.github.io. Okay. And then clone that repository, add some HTML, and then go ahead and push that code, and then go to the same website in your new tab or new browser, or Slack it out so that everybody can actually see that. Make sure that everybody has access to it.
Okay. Yeah. But yeah, so you want to see personalized. Is it safe to add it yeah. So go to GitHub. It sometimes takes yeah, back to it is really yeah, it's taking so it'll that's the second thing. Gives you there you go. This
Oh, you're barely adding that. Okay, so you're adding that. Going in that order. Sure. Yeah.
It can take a while.
So you want to add something to it, just so
Yes.
So after you push, so once you push it, right now, what were you having? Oh, no. No, you can literally just type whatever you want. Even if you do like H1, now. Yeah, so it's we have This is probably a better question.
dash cam, your messages, anytime you send that message, yeah, so
This takes a while. Sometimes in the category. Yeah.
once you do that, then it's going to push it up to be able to see your work. Yeah, so you, if you I would say you're always on one
I guess.
This is how
Yes, sir.
My hardest part with the Visual Studio Code is like when
Okay.
you do it, when you open up a blank page.
Okay. Do what? Blank page?
Yeah.
Like create a new
Yeah.
file?
There's nothing. Yeah. There's nothing at all.
Okay.
So that's your Explorer, right?
Yes.
So how do you so quickly add your like HTML? See, I don't have.
These should show up over here. So this creates a new folder and this
Right.
creates a new file. So I select this and then I click this and then I give anything.
Maybe I'm seeing it wrong. You want to come over and remind me real quick?
Okay, yeah.
So yeah,
There's a 07, this is the main folder. We have a folder and then within it, I have this folder created on my desktop, and then I click, and then within that folder I select working. Oh, you're trying the second one.
yes.
Yeah, well, we'll come to this one. Is this Oh, okay. Yeah, we'll take a look at this.
And so that's the process.
Chris, I'm getting 404s for your website. For the profile picture. Hey, Chris, is this your website?
No.
Oh, oh, this is a different Chris. Chris C and Chris W. Is it your?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Did you fix it?
I will.
Okay. All right. Was everyone able to deploy the first way? Issues?
Yeah, I still can't log into the password.
Oh, okay. We'll sit together after the class and then we'll see. We'll figure it out. All right. So let's go ahead and look at the second way, the project publishing, basically. How do you publish your project? So now this is a good use case if once you're doing your portfolio homework. Remember, I said it's going to evolve by the end of the class. You'll be working on it, uploading new projects. So that's a good use case for deploying it to this repo. Okay, so anybody who comes to your GitHub main page, this is what they will see, your personal portfolio page. Okay, that's a good use case for your first homework. But what will happen is now you have to submit all your projects using the GitHub pages, right? So this is only usable once and it's gone. So the next way is how do you deploy your projects to GitHub, the second way. Okay, so it's kind of similar, but it has a little bit different settings that you have to do. So let's go back. I'm going to go ahead and create a new project, and I'm going to clone this, and then kind of create an HTML file and upload it. And this way you can name it anything you want. So this will be my, let's say, homework 1. No, it's a homework 2. I would probably name it in a better way. But I don't know what that project is, so I'm just going to call this for now. Okay, my description, this is homework 2. Public, initialize this repository with readme, and that should be good. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and clone this. All right, let's go back, ls. Okay, that's where I want to clone it, so git clone. Okay, now I'm going to go inside that folder, and there's my readme file. Okay, so let's go back to our Visual Studio. I'm going to create a new HTML file. Again, it has to be the same way, it has to be called index.html. Okay, and then let's go ahead and create a style.css also. Style.css. Okay, same thing. This is my project website. Okay, let's add some style. Okay, let's go ahead and link this, my style.css. I'm going to format it. Looks good. Let's make sure this is running. Okay, so this is my local. Looks good on my local. Now I'm going to go ahead and upload this to my GitHub pages. All right. Git add git commit -m. Okay, and then git push. All right. Let's go back to GitHub. Make sure my code is there, and it's there. Okay. Now I cannot use the same method. I cannot copy homework to and put it, and it should show up. It's not going to work like that. So what you have to do this is you go into your settings. Okay. Scroll down, keep scrolling down. There's a section called GitHub pages. Okay. Settings, then GitHub pages. You will see this source over here. All right. So open the drop down and select master branch. Okay. Once you select this, you will see, if you keep going down again, it's going to deploy this homework, this repository, and it's going to give you the link which you can use, which it has published. And this is the link that you're going to be submitting your other homeworks. Okay. So first link would be your actual GitHub code, and the second link would be the published site of your project that the TS can click and it will show up how it looks like. Okay, so this is my link now. So I'm going to copy this and paste it, and this should show up my website. So now the first one, personal, you can only have one, but with the second method you can have as many as you want. So all your homeworks, all your projects, you can do it this way. Okay, you can create new repositories for them. Go into your GitHub settings for that project. Okay, for your repository, go into settings, scroll down to GitHub pages, and then go ahead and select master branch. That's all you have to do. Once you do it successfully, you will see GitHub is going to give you the link for your website, and then you can go ahead and click on that, and this will show up for everybody. So the same thing, if I select this out, you guys should be able to see this page over here. Important thing over here, it has to be index.html lowercase on your first page, because you see it's not, you're not putting /index or anything over here. By default, GitHub is going to assume that the main file is going to be index.html. Okay. The second thing you guys must have noticed, it takes few tries to get to this. Sometimes it's just slow in deploying. Sometimes the site is cached. So give it a few tries, refresh it a few times, and it will eventually show up. For some reason, for me, it always show up, but I've seen some people were having issues. But keep refreshing. If you have done it right, you have your options, you have deployed it correctly, you have index.html as your main file, this should show up. Okay. So now with that in mind, if you are submitting your homework, let's suppose you don't want to create a personal page like this, and you already have your portfolio repository, all you have to do is go inside your homework repository, select master branch, and it should actually just deploy your homework. Okay, that's a good test. Do it right now. Give it a try on your homeworks. If you're ready, deploy it. What's going to happen is you can always, even if you're not ready, go ahead and do it. As long as you keep pushing to your repository, this page is going to keep getting updated. Okay, so you don't have to worry about, do I need to wait until I'm done then deploy it? It doesn't matter. It's the link is not going to change. As soon as you push your code is going to be reflected over here, whether you do it right now or do it towards the end. Okay, one more time, create there are two ways. You can create a new repository and test it out, or try it on the portfolio homework. Go to your repository settings. All right, last tab over here, scroll down, find GitHub pages, and then from the drop down where it says source, select master branch, and then it should deploy your website. It should be working. Again, if you don't have index.html, it's not going to work. So make sure you have your repository has an index.html. Okay, Questions? All right, give it a try. And that's the last exercise. Remaining time, you can work on your homework. Let me know if you have any questions. Thursday, we are going to look at some more CSS, but this time Bootstrap. So we're going to kick off Bootstrap on Thursday, and Saturday is going to be Advanced Bootstrap. Okay, good stuff coming up. All right, thank you. That's all from my end. Let me know if you guys have any questions, but that's the end of the class. All right, work on your homework. Make sure this is working, and that should